Hello, this is Patrick. Welcome to Chart Built Wealth, profitable investing with technical analysis. Well, it's been a okay week for the buy recommendations after a couple of spectacular weeks, but let's get into it. I want to get through all the buy recommendations. I'm doing these in order of things that you can do, that you can buy today and kind of order from top to bottom. So MJ, this is a ETF that is basically cannabis stocks. So there might be 100 stocks in here, cannabis publicly traded companies. And so big downtrend was done. We got A, B. I'm expecting a C rally up, around 30 or something. We'll see. But one thing, what got me bullish on this was the rainbow convergence here. We had definitely a five-wave pattern up here that told me that the direction had changed from down to up. And then we had a three-wave correction that told me this was a correction downward. We've had a small five waves up, and then we've had a three-wave correction. I'm looking for a five waves up here. And we had a nice down day today. We had a down day uh, on Wednesday. And so I think you have a little bit of an opportunity here to purchase this. Price projection, I think, is significant. Verizon, another recent buy recommendation, actually suggested buying it right here as it was creating a triangle pattern. I thought this was a support line right here. This was a resistance line, and that would mean at this point it was almost done. However, it expanded, which triangles often do. I've redrawn the support line, and so prices have rebounded smartly. They're above where we got bullish, and we're coming into a daily bullish rainbow convergence where maybe tomorrow, maybe today, maybe tomorrow would be considered the convergence, and then we might get a retracement back towards that convergence, or prices will just sit here for a couple of days. So what was I doing today? I was selling a little bit. If it's up tomorrow, I'll sell a little bit. And if it comes down and tests this rainbow convergence, I will buy much more than I sold. And that's kind of the philosophy here. So tomorrow if it's up, I wouldn't buy it. I'd wait for a pullback. But again, this has a 6% dividend, 6.5% dividend. And this pattern, this symmetrical triangle, A, B, C, D, E, even pulled back after that. It's trying to break out right now. The price projection is 50. And we're at like, say, 43. So we've got, I don't know, 18% potential upside and a 6.5% dividend. But the larger pattern I showed on the initiation of this buy recommendation a week ago, there's a much larger pattern that's suggesting much, much more upside. So you definitely want to get involved in this. S&P 500. So I'm bearish on the S&P 500. Yeah, that hasn't been great the last few weeks, but we're kind of stair-stepping here, not getting a lot accomplished. And what I really see here is a big negative divergence. Even with this recent rise up, look at the volume is kind of fading. And we have about a, I don't know, a 6, 7 month negative divergence on the weekly chart. And this is where I initially went bearish. I made a couple of good calls here on turning neutral and then bearish again. And then, we're underwater probably a little bit here, but not a lot. And I think that you're going to see some sort of a correction here, and it can be short and sweet and kind of intense because you have the most ever daily options bullish options being bought on the S&P 500 ever. So people are buying options for one day. That's short. So they're kind of really riding this thing, and that's great when you can get a small advance like this whole week. The S&P's up 1%, China's up, I don't know, 4%, 5%. All these other things that I'm suggesting are up much, much more than the US market. Uh, the emerging markets has been where the action is in Europe, much bigger performers than the US market. So anyway, I'm expecting some sort of a pullback here, and I think it could be something to behold. So this is the VIX, and this is probably too much information, but I'm going to uh, just show you this. As the market went up back in 1995 to 2000, you can see the VIX was going higher that whole time. As the market goes higher, the VIX should be going lower, and it didn't. The same thing happened in 2006 and 2007. So market went higher, the VIX was going higher. That's wrong. It's telling you that some smart people out there are looking, they know a correction is coming. We saw the same thing in 2020, and we saw the same thing in 2021 and 22. And now we got the same thing going on here as we're hitting higher highs. We got a higher VIX. That's kind of crazy. So just wanted to point that out. So bearish on the S&P 500. Okay, so we have had the cannabis stock ETF. We've had Verizon with the big dividend yield, and we got TAN, the solar stocks. Who would have ever wanted to buy solar stocks with the anti-green kind of scenario going on with our government right now, where they're not giving tax breaks for green projects, and the stocks have suffered in anticipation of that. But here we have an inverse head and shoulders pattern on the daily chart. Here's the neckline. Here's where we went bullish. We got a breakout. We got a little bit of a couple of down days here. So I think you have a chance to kind of get in again or add. What was I doing a couple of days ago? I was selling on this. What was I doing today? I was buying a little bit. I'm trying to get my position larger because, again, on the monthly chart, on a 15-year chart or 10-year chart of this particular ETF, it looks like China, like the Shanghai index. And we were on the support level of that 10 or 15-year symmetrical triangle, which is telling me that the move could be much larger than this, 6, 7 month bullish inverse head and shoulders pattern. So same with Verizon. And so those are, I think these are important things to get involved in. Again, we're trying to identify new trends at an early stage and then stay with those trends until they change. And this was in a downtrend for 3 or 4 years before April. National Retail Properties, the REIT, we went bullish back here back in June. And here we are. We're higher, but we have, again, another inverse head and shoulders pattern. And we had a nice up move, and then we've had a few down days, again, giving me a chance. What was I doing on these up days? I was selling. What was I doing on these down days? I'm buying. Today I bought some. So I got my position at a good amount, got my stop down at 41.5, thought about 42.50 putting my stop, but not going to do that yet. This has over a 5% dividend, and the price projection is 50, and we're at 42.75, let's call it. So we've got a good upside, and almost 20% upside on the smaller chart. This also on the longer term chart has huge upside. So this would be just the beginning, and it's on a point and figure chart buy. Everything looks okay here. So China. So here's one that's less actionable. I wouldn't be buying this for sure. Again, our market's up 1% this week. What's China? 226. Look at last week. It was probably up 4 or 5%. This has been where the action is. This is where I got you involved in China back in That looks right to me. It is uh, May 30th of 2024, and the Chinese market has just exploded compared to our market. So, if you want alpha, if you want relative strength, this has been where it is. I certainly wouldn't be buying here. What am I? It's setting up a negative divergence here. What would I be doing? I'm selling. So the last couple of days I've been selling, but it still looks good. And it's something you need to do. If you own China, just scale back a little bit, get a pullback, add those shares back at a lower cost, manage your risk. Silver, again, this is on fire. Who wants to own the US stock market up 1%? Here's silver up 8% for the month. This thing is on fire. Starting to get overbought here. I'm getting concerned with commodities. The message here is those first couple of charts on cannabis, VERIZON, solar stocks, energy stocks are starting to look a little more interesting. What is starting to get toppy to me is commodities. Short term, I think a pullback is coming, and pullbacks in something as volatile as silver, copper, platinum can be short and sweet, and they can hurt you in a few days. So, again, I'm making sure I'm selling some on these updates. And this is why on the intraday, each one of these bars represents 2 hours. So this whole chart is just 2.5 months. We're in an ending diagonal pattern. And what this suggests is A, B, C. These are found at the end of a trend move. And this trend is up. So A, B, C, D, we might get one more higher high, and I'll be selling more. What did I do the last couple of days? I've been buying a little bit. What did I do up here? I sold some. So if it gets up here and hits new highs, I'm going to be selling more than what I sold here because this would be the end of this pattern. And maybe we get a correction down to 34 or something, which, if that goes from 36 to 34, I don't know, that's 6-7%. Exelon, this one's just, it was a stellar stock for us, a nice descending triangle. We got a nice rise. We got very close to our price projection of 51. We got to, let's call it 48. So basically, we got there and then, told you to sell, sell, sell. And then recently, I've been nibbling at that, but not as much. We're not back here where we went bullish on the breakout where the reward to risk is really good. We're now up here and we're close to our price projection if we didn't already get there. And so, I probably own a third of what I owned back here, but it's still, as long as it holds 42, I'm bullish on Exelon, the utility company. And here's copper. It's getting overbought. We've had some big volume days. Our price projection based on this ascending triangle, rising support line, flat resistance line. Here's where we went bullish the last time. I've traded this very, very well in a chop within a consolidation. There's a lot of volatility. But here's where we went bullish the last time. Got my stop up at 31. Would like to get it higher. Our price projection based on this pattern is 41, actually, not 42. So we're getting really close. So when I look at a short-term chart of that, here's a fourth wave triangle. Things go in 5 waves. So is this the fifth wave? It looks to me like we have one more higher high before we get some sort of a correction, maybe back down to 33, 34, maybe more. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But on this high that we got, as I said last week, if it's up, I'm going to be selling, which I did, selling, 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 selling. I bought a little bit back, not as much as I sold. I do think there's another high coming because on this particular high, we got a higher high on a relative strength index. And I think we're setting up for one more higher high and we'll get a lower low, a lower high on our relative strength index. And that will give us a negative divergence that will tell us, we need to sell more, sell this down to our minimum. Platinum, kind of the same deal. Here's the big consolidation. Here's where we went bullish. Price projections 141. We got to 135. So we're close. We're like 2 or 3% from the price projection. So it's not a lot when you consider what we've made on the way up. So let's take a look at the shorter term chart. And here we are, fourth way triangle, just like copper, saying, there's probably one more up thrust. We got an up thrust. That's what I was saying last week. I was selling into this strength. We got a pullback here. Um, uh, I'm not adding as much here as to copper because we do have a negative divergence on the shorter term chart. So I still have, I don't know, a third of what I had in platinum originally, but this isn't something that I'm gung ho bullish on at this point. This is kind of done. We're looking for new leaders like the cannabis, the after it was in a downtrend for 3 years, like solar stocks downtrend for 3 years, like things like that. Uh, Treasuries, a 10-year treasury. This was the bullish inverse head and shoulders pattern with the neckline suggesting $100 price projection. And it's just been steady. I like this. I get another dividend in a couple days. I think it goes ex-dividend on the 31st of July, or maybe it's August 1st. I don't know. But my stop is up here at 90. It's not going to hurt me. It's going to balance my portfolio. It's going to give me good appreciation. If you see the market have a couple big down days, I would expect, not always, but I would expect treasuries to really rally because it's a safety valve. Thank you for watching Chart Built Wealth, Profitable Investing for Technical Analysis. Please like and subscribe. The advice has been solid. Adios. Have a great evening.